Thank you for calling 1-800-SAD-DESIGN. Welcome back to episode 25. We are really excited for today's episode because we have a very special guest, our old professor and friend, Ryan Donahue.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we're so excited that you're here. I think we wanted you to be one of the first guest speakers on the show because you've been so supportive of us since the very beginning. So we were very, honored that you were willing to come and do this with us today.
I saw some coattails. I'm going to hitch my star to your rising lady here. So,
yeah. I guess, I don't know if you want to do a little brief introduction of who you are, what you do.
I would love to. I thought you were going to say who I was and what I do, and so you could embellish and make up some things.
You
and
probably do it the best. I mean, I could hype you up this whole time, but
So Ryan Donahue. So I am a graphic designer by trade. Started in the olden days of graphic design, I guess, in the late '90s or mid '90s. So I guess just giving the whole history. It started. I was really into writing in high school and wanted to take a journalism class. So I signed up for that. And first semester of it, just writing, learning how to do the inverted pyramid of journalism, a lot of things that are no longer in vogue. It's turned very much into clickbait sort of journalism now. But we learned the old school ways from an old school teacher. And second semester, we had to learn how to do page layout. And so one day we were kind of shuffled into the little Mac lab with the little tiny Mac Plus computers, and our teacher said, "Here's PageMaker, have fun." And so that just changed my life. I was like, you can make stuff, and on the screen it looks like when you print it. It was just revolutionary to me. So this is maybe 1991, and from there got really involved in newspaper layout, yearbook and yearbook layout by extension. And then in high school, I had to find employment, find something to do. And I thought, well, I have these skills I'm using in my journalism classes. Maybe I could find a part-time job doing that. And through some trial and error, the error was I went to an employment agency and I said, here's what I can do. Can you find me some work? And I thought they had I don't know, some kind of networking or some magic solution where they're like, well, here's a career. And literally after I paid them $40 for this career help, they opened up the phone book, flipped through the yellow pages, and was like, oh, Kinko's, I think they do typesetting. Let me call them. And they just picked up the phone and called. And so that was a real life lesson for me of oh yeah, I just paid $40 to watch someone else pick up the phone and call on my behalf. I could have done that. And minimum wage at the time was $4 an hour. So that was 10 hours worth of work, just out the window. Anyway, long story short, I was hired at Kinko's, and that was a great experience for me. I used to call it the fast food of graphic design, because every order had to be done in 24 hours. You were churning through dozens of orders per day. And it was a real crash course into the technical side of graphic design. Didn't focus, hardly at all on theories or any sort of, academic approach to graphic design. It was very much customer needs a business card, have it done in 24 hours. So got really good with the software, but I think through that experience, my own style was still evolving, and I wasn't really in a place where I was necessarily happy with my graphic design work. So this coincided with graduating from high school, moving into the university system. And I actually, though, I wanted to start as an English major. I don't know if I ever told you this in class, but
you talked about writing, but not
I used to love to write. And, I was kind of well, I think maybe I like writing more than graphic design at that point. And, this was 1994. And the idea of being a graphic designer was still maybe not a common thing you thought about. It wasn't, a career. It was still very much, rooted in manual process and more older traditions. But it was rapidly evolving into a completely computer-based art form. And so I remember did my freshman year at Boise State. Sorry, I went to U of I for the remainder of my degree. But in that first day where you sign up for your major, you sort of go to the different tables and explore the English table. The line was out the door, and I looked over at the art table and no one was at that table. And I was 18 and very impatient. I was well, I'll sign up for graphic design today. And then I thought later on I'll switch it back to English when I don't have to wait in line. And I never did. So I stuck with graphic design, and here I am. But after school, I went into advertising and marketing, which is a very common place for graphic designers to wind up. You know, it is what it is. It's sort of a necessary evil, maybe in a way, because marketing and advertising, I think, really drive the art form. It's where it's easily applicable. So was wrapped up in that world for 30-ish years, a long time, since 1998. Worked at a series of local agencies, one called Creative Source International. That was my first big job out of college, where I did strictly pre-press production, really no creative work whatsoever. And so I would always, other art directors and designers would actually come up with the creative work, the concepts, and then it would come back to my department to do, basically remake the entire file, but in high resolution, using the right techniques so that it would output on the high-res image setters. And I was always really critical of the designs. I would think, well, I could do better. I have a better headline. I have a better concept. And I started doing weird things. If anyone's listening to this that worked with me at Creative Source, and you ever saw a weird Post-it note with like a different headline, that was me like suggesting things. I would like try to offer ideas in a very passive aggressive way. Never took off. But then I was, from there went on to Oliver Russell, where I honestly took, not substantial pay cut, but went, I think, from $26,000 to $22,000, but it offered me a chance to do a lot more creative work. That was a lot more rewarding. Worked with Oliver Russell for quite a few years in Boise, and then from there branched out and really became more independent around like the 2006 timeframe. Lots of other weird stories I could tell you in the middle. I'm trying to do a crash course of how I wound up here today. So worked for an agency in Portland for a long time. That experience kind of showed me that I think I could do this on my own for a while. And around 2014, 2015, I decided to make the break permanently and to really listen to my instincts to see if I could go it alone. So I did. Broke out on my own in 2015, maybe borrowed a client from the previous agency I was at, which I don't consider it that I stole this client. I was just one person. I was just me. And, I was competing against an agency with like 30 people. So really, I decided to approach the largest client of this agency, which was Adobe Systems Incorporated. And thinking they're a multi-billion-dollar corporation, there definitely has to be room for a small person like me to have a project, right? Just some little morsel that I could build a career off of. What I didn't count on was that, in my time at this agency, I had spent so much time working with the clients, getting to know them, kind of being in their world, that when I broke out on my own and I got back in touch with some of my favorite clients, what they said is, well, we'd just like to maybe give you all the work we were giving that agency because we like working with you, Ryan. Mm-hmm. And that was, I remember the moment. I was, for anyone that's struggling with imposter syndrome, this moment that my life changed, I was literally in my pajamas, in my bed, where I had a lap desk because I had no space in the house I was at the time to work. Thankfully, everything was phone-based and not video-based back then. And it was this pivotal moment where I was suddenly my wildest dreams came true. I never expected them to say, we'll give you all the work. And so I'm just what? So I went from this kind of nervous low to this ecstatic high, and then reality set right back in and brought me back down to earth, because I realized it wasn't going to be an overnight process. It took a long time to apply to be an official vendor, to go through this background check where I made some really stupid mistakes. Somehow I checked a box on this vendor intake form saying that I had been convicted of a felony, which is not. Please look me up on the Idaho sites. I have no criminal record whatsoever. I still think it was Adobe Acrobat somehow flipped that answer accidentally or something. I can't imagine.
I doubt it.
Yeah, but I chalk it up to I was probably just very stressed and very distracted and didn't read the question. So a few weeks later, I'm just waiting and sweating. Are they going to approve me to be a vendor? And get this email from the attorney's office that works for Adobe. And they're like, hey, we just have a question about this felony conviction you said you have. And I'm so imagine, this is my big chance. And I've made this horrible mistake where I'm just what? So I wrote back immediately and I'm I don't know what happened. I just total mea culpa sort of stuff. I was here's my social security number. Yeah. Here's the site where you can check all the court records. I'm fine, please. And so they wrote back basically oh, you dumbass. Sorry, I'm not sure what we can say on this podcast. You indiscriminate form filler outer you. They were like, approved me. And so from there, though, still took, a year or two to get any like substantial amount of work from that relationship. So in the meantime, I was still scrambling, doing all sorts of like individual freelance projects, really kind of like, in some cases, getting in over my head, trying to take on opportunities I might not have been ready for. But after a short, year or two of waiting, I think by like 2016, suddenly I was running a small company and Adobe was our main client. And it was like, it took a while to really like warm up to this was happening. But it ended up for 10 years. I ran the small company. I had a business partner. And just the two of us did an incredible amount of work, and we relied on more of a contractor model because our projects were very uneven month to month. It could be tons of stuff in the fall timeframe and nothing in the spring.
Yeah.
So it was like feast or famine. But we tried to take all of the experiences that we had both had working in different places, going way back to high school, working in like movie theaters, things like that, and really trying to run our business in a way where we thought about the people working for us as human beings. And we're like, let's treat them with respect. Let's let them live a life where we can use kind of this like windfall of big client work to like enjoy it, right? And this is right at the time, kind of being a digital nomad was sort of a concept.
Yeah.
So suddenly we were able to take our laptops, kind of work from anywhere. And I don't know, I had this moment, I would say from like 2017 to about 2020, when it was just like living the dream. Everything was amazing. Pandemic took that, right down to the ground again. So we scraped through, did the whole like, business loan situation to sort of cover ourselves for a while. But things never completely, totally recovered after that. We, billings kind of started to go back up. We honestly started to migrate away from any sort of creative work into full-on production work for Adobe, and I can maybe talk about that a little later. But unfortunately, all of that in 2024 just like flamed out completely, where we had done all of this amazing work doing all of the translation and localization for their Black Friday promotion, where they take, one special, which is basically 40% off, but then they say, okay, there's business customers and education customers and 10 different flavors of that and 100 different sizes of banners. And those all have to be converted into 30 plus languages. And so our little company, just team of like 10 people total, did that, and we just nailed it. And I had migrated myself more into like programming, like writing scripts to automate that process. And so just this little, I don't know, it was like Bad News Bears, if that reference like makes any sense. We did it, and we were just like doing the best work ever. Our last big project for them seriously handed off like 50,000 individual like JPEG assets at the end.
Crazy.
Like, and but it was like we had worked for a long time to get to that level. It didn't happen overnight. And we were just really proud. And then a few months later, some executives at Adobe got up on stage, showed the work we did, and claimed that their AI system, Gen Studio, which didn't even have a name at that time in 2024, they claimed that they had used that system to do that work. Just flat out lied. So anyone from Adobe who's watching this, just like, thanks for that moment. Because it galvanized me, honestly. It really helped me see that I had maybe been chasing the wrong things. I had been looking for glory in places that corporate work is never going to be genuine or honest. It's about the dollars. And when money is your only goal, the reality becomes that any way to achieve that money is suddenly valid, even if it's completely immoral or unethical. And that's been my experience in all corporate work. So any designers out there going into corporate land, listen to your heart. You got to understand where you might have to compromise your principles at times.
Didn't you even check like their pixels and everything? They're all
I
pixel
did.
Perfect.
Yeah. They showed the stuff on stage. For a brief moment, it was like, oh, there's our work on the big conference stage. This was the Summit conference. And it, I don't know, it took a while to really accept it was happening. Like it took a while to accept that they would actually do this to us. And, in hindsight, I get it. We're all familiar with AI hype that's happening everywhere. I think anyone who really tries to use it in a serious way is realizing it's like, it does some stuff, but it's not worth $1 trillion. It's autocorrect on steroids, right? It's, it just, I don't know. The summarizing articles is great. That's also what Cliff's Notes used to do back when I was in college. So it's like all of these things existed before So I'm still, I think, a very heavy skeptic with AI. But at the time, I think every tech company was just scrambling they want an AI story to tell. And Adobe was the same way. And they had none. They were like, oh, we have nothing that actually looks good or is functional.
Yeah.
So they made it up. They do what tech companies do. And I understand that. There's the famous story that like the iPhone, the original unveiling of that, like if you tap the wrong icon, it would crash on stage. Yeah. And thankfully that didn't happen. Thankfully for Apple. So I totally understood that, they can do aspirational statements on stage and talk about things that don't work.
Hope to do.
Yeah. And legally there's sorry.
Oh, like to lessen your workload, have this tool that will turn these assets into different formats. Like I understand that the hype around that, but
yeah, and it's just like reality starts to play out a lot differently, I think. So it was what it was, and thankfully though at that same time as my career as like a teacher and professor was starting to take off, so I had way back in like 2004 started taking on some adjunct classes at Boise State. I've started to realize the entire university system in our nation, maybe worldwide, is built on the back of adjunct professors who get paid basically zero. Parking fees sometimes outweigh the actual salary that you get as an adjunct. But most adjuncts aren't doing it for the money. It's because there's some other reason they want to give back. For me, I really wanted to get better at public speaking, was where I was at that time. Because I remember I went into a meeting at Hewlett-Packard to present some concepts, had a complete panic attack in this boardroom. And it was like, the total like situation of big boardroom table, a bunch of clients all dressed, very fancy. And I was just like this weirdo kind of designer person. And the door was on the other side of the table, so I felt like I couldn't escape. Oh, no. And so I'm presenting these concepts which weren't mine, and I didn't believe it, but I'm having to like pretend I think they're awesome.
Yeah.
And I just start to like I can't breathe, and I know everyone in the room noticed it. It was super embarrassing, and so I thought, I really got to get over this if I want to stay in this business. You have to talk to people all the time. And thankfully, it just was like a coincidence. I had been offered like a chance to do an adjunct new media class at Boise State. So that was, how many years ago now? 21 years ago. I have an official 20-year pin at Boise State, but really, I taught adjunct for maybe 4 or 5 years, kind of off and on between that and 2010. But then in the early 2020s, started to get another request for different adjunct experience. And then, there was a position suddenly open for visiting assistant professor of graphic design. So I did that. They kept me on for 2 years with that role. And all of this was happening as my Adobe career was like imploding. And I don't know, I was just starting to realize like there's this terrible saying that's something to the effect of those who can't do teach. But I look at that more in a positive way of realistically, we all get to a point where what we used to be capable of just isn't as easy anymore, or we sort of move on, thematically in our life.
You've done it all. It's time to do something.
Yeah, or there's like, we want something more meaningful in a way. And I'm not trying to say career in graphic design isn't meaningful.
I understand.
It's coming out wrong. But I don't know, the connections I was making with students, the ability to sort of say, here's all the stuff I went through, and here's the times that I suffered. I don't know if it works at all, but there's this desire within me to say, if you could like avoid that, like just to take this lesson and don't make the mistakes I've made, I would love to share those things. So I don't know, it was kind of a very gradual sort of transition, but I now, like on LinkedIn, I just call myself teacher because that's what I feel like I want to be now. I don't know, commercially, I haven't done as much graphic design in the last several years. I do lots of personal projects, and I do lots of experiments and help friends who have small projects. But as far as like actual clients, I've also noticed I don't know if it's just where I'm at specifically in my career, but there's no work for me anymore. I've really tried over the last year to find work on a freelance basis, and it's probably something about me personally, but
I don't think so. I just think
imposter syndrome never goes away. But I'm just noticing a shift in the industry. It is trending much younger these days. I do think there is a bit of unethicalness happening. I don't want to call anyone out specifically, but I've noticed in job postings and in seeking interns locally, there tends to be this idea that, we can get some young, like hungry students, designers to come in and basically do all this work for no cost or for minimal cost. And I don't know, knowing how much the work is marked up and then sold back to the clients for, that revenue is going somewhere. And I'm noticing trends of like, oh, but the principals of this company seem to sure be enjoying their lifestyle outside the office. Meanwhile, a fresh graduate is like working all night or, doing 10 times more tasks than they may be signed on for. I hope that gets sort of like righted at some point.
I hope so, because that's been my biggest struggle in the current job market. Trying to find something that lasts is really comes down to pay. And it's like, I know I need to start somewhere, but it's really hard to go for $14 an hour when I can be making up to like 32 on average at the bar. So it's like, and the work is harder too, I'd say.
Yeah.
Doing design work. So it doesn't really add up to me to,
Yeah, I agree with that.
Entirely.
There is like an extra level of, I don't know how to quantify it, but it's like knowledge work. It takes a toll, right? It looks easy on the surface. It's like, oh, I'm just sitting there on the computer having a great time. But there's the stress of, someone wants to pay me for this work. Am I doing a good enough job that it's worth their money? Is this the right answer? Have I come up with something creative enough? And there's a lot of self-doubt. There's a lot of like mental toll that this work takes.
I agree with that.
Where, one of my first jobs was as a janitor. And so, I used to clean toilets for a living. I'll say, I know what it feels like to have someone shit on your work, like literally and metaphorically. But I remember those days of like, when you were done cleaning, you were just done and you could go home. And it was very obvious, where sometimes graphic design or marketing work, once you think you're done, it's just the beginning, because it opens up a can of worms, or we have a change order, or suddenly the boss's, cousin had an opinion and we're changing something.
And I don't know if it's like just a creative brain thing too, but like I can't stop thinking about it till it's done either. Yeah. So it's like, do I really ever stop working?
Yeah, it doesn't shut off. And that's one thing I try to say in my classes now, is to think of our brains. They're not like light switches. That's, I think, what the world at large wants us to imagine. We can just jump from task to task and multitask, and it's all like very easy. And why can't you do it, person? And I'm like, that's not a human brain. It's a blob of jelly. It's an organic thing. It takes time. Like memories and things we're thinking about have to fade before we can focus on the next thing. And things that are difficult for us. And sometimes these, client issues can be difficult and sort of like taxing on our soul. And you're right. You don't just let go of that instantly. It's like a thing that lingers. So I don't know. There's, depending on the environment too, there can be toxicity. Anytime money is involved, things get really weird. So I don't know. It's a dynamic time. I'm totally rambling, by the way, too. You should cut me off and keep us on task.
You had a great introduction. You so much better than I would have done it. Such a great storyteller that I could sit here and listen to you talk all day. So don't worry about it. I guess we can move into our little Q&A that that I came up with. Our easy warm-up questions.
Okay. Got some zingers here. I prepared my responses.
What's your least favorite font and why?
Adobe Clean.
Why?
It is the brand font for Adobe. So if you've seen any marketing from them in the last 10 years, Adobe Clean is the font family. It is the only typeface I used for about 10 years for the work. And you get real sick of it after a while. But just with those, stories I shared at the beginning, it's come to symbolize dishonesty to me. And it's come to symbolize bad business practices. And, I don't know, and a little bit of maybe sadness for what could have been. I got deep in the weeds with Adobe, and I learned all about their founders, John and Chuck, who were geniuses, right? They were computer scientists. Book recommendation is Creativity Incorporated, if anyone's read that. Story of Pixar, basically. But it's a little bit deeper than that. It goes into kind of the history of computer graphics. And so Adobe's mentioned. And so the founders of Adobe, created PostScript, which we wouldn't have careers right now without that. Like everything we see printed, I'm gesturing broadly.
Yeah.
It's because of PostScript. They figured out mathematically we can represent any shape in the world using calculus, essentially, is the core of that. And wrote this programming language called PostScript that allowed us to define things on a page. And from there, that extended into Adobe Illustrator. Adobe Photoshop actually wasn't their program initially. It was the Knoll brothers made Photoshop, and they just bought it. That was one of their first acquisitions, and now they're a company that really just acquires things.
Yeah.
But when I think back, it's like that original promise, John and Chuck were like, this will make the world better. This is a thing we can, all these computers that we're kind of figuring out what to do with right now. Now we have like graphical monitors that are high fidelity, high resolution, and laser printing. And so they saw this revolution that this was going to open up. And I think their motives were pure. They were just scientists. They were curious people who wanted to make this. But as I think happens so often in corporate America, maybe just not corporate America, just human nature in general, right?
Yeah.
We have lords and serfs, and it tends to always kind of separate that way. But Adobe became a beast. And I've heard this phrase somewhere that companies become a beast that needs to be fed after a certain level of revenue. And so Adobe is now, to me, a company that is shareholder value first, feeding the beast at all costs, right? Mm-hmm. Actual innovation and building good products that make their customers' lives better is a secondary concern. It's like their biggest, and I can say this as someone who's been on the inside of that world for a long time.
Yeah.
I did a lot of marketing for them. I did hundreds of projects. I've been in thousands of meetings. And I really know this, that, the individual people who work there are great. Like, they're just regular human beings. But the chain of command from the top down really is more interested in this point at sort of cloaking this subscription model as useful features. But that is the start and end of their business, is get you on a recurring subscription, make it really difficult to cancel. And that's their whole business model. And I kind of hate it.
Yeah.
So I'm getting a little maybe political with design here. But I'm personally on this quest right now to get rid of Adobe in my life, to see, is it possible to break out of the monopoly? Because going way back to, turn of the 19th, 20th centuries, when we talk about antitrust laws and breaking monopolies, this is the reason. If they own everything, and they tried to buy Figma, so that would have been an even greater level of like dominance, suddenly any regular person has no other options, and they have to pay whatever Adobe says you pay. And to me, that just like, it stifles the industry. It really brings the art form down. So I think they're going to get what's coming to them sooner than later. Their stock is tanking currently. Ironically, it's because Google and some other places have AI that is just way more like, it's a fancier parlor trick that attracts people. So I don't know. I think unless Adobe, and if anyone at Adobe is listening, CEO, give me a call. I've got some great ideas for you. But unless they shift their focus to truly back to innovating for the customer, like,
I think they're going to lose everyone.
Yeah, because that iron claw grip of subscriptions, it's going to fade at some point. And there's a lot of competitors making a lot of inroads.
I'm just using it because it's what I know at this point, but I'm ready to drop it at any time.
Well, and that's part of the gimmick, is that if you work for an agency or a larger organization where 20 years of files are built on Adobe's software, it's really hard to break out of if you have to work within a work group. But my hope is that as more and more independent design comes online, more of it's sort of like destined for a phone screen. Ultimately, the Adobe tools just aren't as needed. And so I'd like to see more competition. That was a long answer for what font I don't like. But Adobe Clean, to be very clear, it's I'm sick of it.
If you could design with one color for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Well, we have to get to the heart of like, what? Let's talk about color. What is a color? What is it? A particular light wave? No, I'm kidding. French fuchsia is the short answer.
French fuchsia.
I think it's FD3, F92. I looked up the hex code, but I can't remember. But French fuchsia, that would be the one.
I don't even know what color that is.
It's a little bit. It's like this hot pink up here, but add more red to it.
Yeah. That's a nice color.
And when it's done right, it is intense. So
it's very striking. FD3, F92.
Did I get it right? Okay.
I think you were very close. Yeah, I can't remember.
Sounds like a weird Star Wars
FD3,
droid or something.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome.
Yeah, I don't remember how that came about. Well, actually, I kind of do. I don't know if I can share it, but I'm going to share it. You can cut this out if you need to. I may have been at Tree Fort and may have been really enjoying Tree Fort. And some lights I saw colors I'd never seen before. And that was one of them. I was just like, what is that?
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I tend to use it just whether a design really requires it or not.
That's awesome. All right. Dream collab, living or dead. Which designer or artist would you want to work with?
So I thought a lot about this, and this is where I have to admit I am not very smart about like graphic design superstars. Like I never got super into the history. My education ended at the Bachelor of Fine Arts level. I want to get my MFA someday, and maybe I'll have a better like design industry answer for this. But as far as just artists who have meant a lot to me personally, Shigeru Miyamoto, from Nintendo, creator of Mario and Zelda. Two things that changed my life as a kid, because that's what got me into computer graphics, got me thinking about just, how you organize information on a screen, and just really, thinking about the joy that a sort of digital creation can bring someone. Like I grew up in a very cold environment in the winters of North Dakota. You couldn't leave the house for like months at a time. And so these games were suddenly this like window into like hope of like, oh, the spring will get here. But in the meantime, I can play Super Mario Brothers. And when I think about him as just a human being and his creations, the things he's designed, the things he's come up with have brought joy to so many families, so many parents and children. It's like incalculable, like the amount of good he has brought to the world. And so that for me, I would just be happy, like cleaning the office or like getting coffee.
Just
like
being near.
I wouldn't even assume I could contribute anything to a project he was working on, but just to like be in that orbit of someone I really respect as, I don't know, seems to be a good human being. So that's one answer. The other answer I thought of was Phil Tippett, who stop motion animator, but worked on all the original Star Wars movies, a lot of other great films. And then he was part of, a group had to go from like maybe some parallels with graphic design, more kind of manual process work to digital work with 3D effects. So I think he was one of the people that was sort of caught up in the Jurassic Park moment where people were asked to do these effects practically. So they did some stop motion treatments. And meanwhile, there's this, young whippersnapper on the computer who's like, hey, look at this 3D T-Rex that I made. Just changed the world overnight. But some of the work, just the meditative nature of his work, and I'm partly thinking about Empire Strikes Back. This might be references that no one gets anymore, but a lot of the walkers moving through the snow are just done by hand, and they had to think of so many ways to make that look good and real. And I was 5 years old when that came out, and it was just magic. And so when I think about people like Phil Tippett and Dennis Muren, and there's so many other names, but who worked in those original kind of like truly movie magic times where they had to take raw ingredients around a studio and figure out how to make that into something. Now it's like computers almost make it too easy. And I think we're sensing that where every Marvel movie, which I love, I love all the franchises, but it's like, a lot of it's just like, oh, hey, here's our physics engine and we need to make a building collapse. And, it starts to look very homogenized after a while. So I'm hoping there's maybe a return. I'm noticing some of the new Star Wars stuff is really leaning into practical effects. And I think there's maybe I hope like a cultural moment, like a desire for less just purely digital, like AI stuff.
And doing it for like the art form itself.
Yeah, to really express something, really, to be human beings again. Like,
have fun.
Can we do that? Is
Yeah.
that the thing that might be on the table?
We're making things too easy on ourselves.
Yeah.
If you weren't a designer, what do you think you'd be doing?
I would have to say writing.
Yeah.
I think that's where, I started writing a lot as a young person. And if the sort of like desktop publishing revolution hadn't found its way to me, I think I would have stuck with writing.
Yeah.
So I like to, written some journalistic stuff. I do some just like creative writing. So I don't know. I think that's something in that realm. And but even with that, nowadays, AI is like such a threat to.
Have you heard about authors publishing works that are entirely AI?
Yeah, it kind of blows my mind. It's like, what's the point? Like,
Jeez. Well, I'm seeing all these ads about Grammarly, and it's like Grammarly used to just be like a punctuation and grammar correction, but now it's like a full.
It rewrites everything for you.
Yeah, and even like probably in my second or third year, when they were like starting to have all those AI checking softwares, if you had Grammarly just like put in a comma, that'd get flagged. And so like, I remember that happened to me once. I stopped using Grammarly, but then now I'm just seeing all these ads about it, and it's like, I don't know, I just feel like it's kind of like what's the point of even being a student?
Yeah.
Because like I don't think I've ever really used AI to like, you know, type out an essay for myself. And it's like if you're not there to put in the work, it's like, really?
Yeah.
I think it's just kind of how kids are, though. Just depends on the student.
Yeah, it's sort of like, what is the ultimate goal? Is it just to get through this moment where my teacher's asking me for something, or is it to learn? And I'm noticing that a lot. Like there is a real reliance on AI. I've seen people, you know, they come kind of tell me about their project idea, and I'm looking at what they're showing me, and I'm like, well, that's clearly just the bullet list printout that ChatGPT gave you, and it's written in that sort of like ChatGPT style. But part of me is like, what's the point here? Like this isn't like your taxes, something that you don't want to do, but you have to do. It's like, hopefully this is a choice, a thing you want to do.
Yeah. Especially when you're given the freedom to kind of choose what you want to do. Why couldn't you come up with your own idea?
One of the things I'm trying to like say over and over is like, you're all human beings. I want to hear what you have to say. Mm-hmm. Like, show me through your art. What do you have to say? What's your opinion? What is your statement? But yeah, it seems like we're turning to AI. I say we just because I don't want to blame any one person, but there's a real pressure to turn to AI just to get it done fast so we don't have to think about it anymore. And I'm like, well, what are we losing culturally with that?
Yeah.
And, I don't know. It's a bit alarming to me, to be honest, but I also feel like it's sort of another heavy-handed. It's very top-down, right? Like correct me if you think differently, but people I talk to, people I'm sort of roaming the streets and like hearing from, that was a weird visual. I'm not roaming the streets, but you know, just like out in the world, I don't have anyone that just comes up to me and starts a conversation with, did you try this with AI? This is so amazing. Or I'm using AI to do this and it made my weekend better. Whatever. I'm not hearing that at all, but I'm hearing tons of stuff from like the tech bros who are like, be sure to use AI. It's like going to make your life better. And I'm hearing tons of stuff from the university now. They're like, they've launched BoiseState.ai, which I don't know if you've had a chance to. So it's an internal system, you know, and I definitely understand the motive of it. They, if I heard correctly, were paying ChatGPT an exorbitant amount of money. I think it was in the six figures for like licensing. And Anthropic, another company, which I didn't even really know about till very recently, they are sort of the underlying technology behind BoiseState.ai, where Boise State is feeding in all its own data to create its own language model, which I think is smart. Like that's, you know, then we have kind of a, you know, someone was telling me some really interesting, amazing work to like ingest all of like the policies of Boise State. So you could ask, you know, an AI chat bot thing. I don't know what the right terms are. You know, say, tell me this about the policy, explain this in like human language. And like that seems like a good use of it. It summarizes things, might help a human being have a better experience. But then, you know, there's always the subtext of, well, then how many HR professionals suddenly are out of work? My mind goes, I love thinking theoretically and kind of extrapolating to like, you know, an infinite sort of idea. You should always cut me off because I can just ramble on forever. But it's like, when I think about it, I'm like, well, couldn't we, you know, it's all public data. Everyone's email is in a system that the state has access to. That's by design. I think that's important to have transparency in all decisions in a public university. But my mind says, well, couldn't I feed in like 10 to 20 years worth of emails from the president and everyone in the upper administration? You know, those salaries are substantial. Yeah. Like College of Arts and Sciences, I believe it's $1 million+ in that area. And as you know, like we had every level of leadership leave the university this year. So that's always concerning. That tends to not happen because things are going great. But my mind says like, why can't we explore feeding in all of the administrative emails so that we can just ask the chatbot what they think and get a pretty standard, typical response from an administrative point of view. Because typically,
doesn't pull anything specific, but
it would just say generally what they would normally say. And anyone who's had a boss, they always say the same things, right? It's like, well, we're cutting budgets and we need all you people at the bottom to do more with less. Heard that my whole career. They just word it differently and they throw in specifics. But my mind says, instead of, we're always looking at cutting out people at the bottom, right? We've probably heard the Taco Bell meme that they replaced the drive-through workers with AI as a test, and some customer drove through and said, can I have 18,000 waters? I don't know if this was actually true, but I heard it as like an example. But it doesn't take much to imagine that's where it's going, right?
Yeah.
They already, a lot of drive-throughs, the person answering you isn't even in the same building. It's like a call center or something. And so there's always this drive to get rid of people at the bottom with new technology. And that's been the same since like the dawn of agriculture, right? It's like, well,
Yeah.
I don't have to pay you humans because I got this ox that I just have to feed it grass and it'll do the same work. So it's just like a pattern that repeats throughout history. But at this point with AI, I'm like, there are a lot of executives and a lot of people in administration, a lot of bosses that really don't contribute anything substantial other than a culture of fear.
Yeah.
And it's like, why couldn't they be replaced with AI and then let the rest of us have?
Yeah, because it's the actual people at the bottom, the workers that are the ones driving everything.
Yeah. I mean, I maintain, if we, again, do these just thought exercises, let's take AI. If we got rid of AI, if we nullified its existence and never happened, is life that much different right now? Yeah.
Probably not.
Not terribly.
Yeah.
We wouldn't have the awesome memes about certain people and
Yeah.
couches and things. I put that on my Instagram recently. But if we got another thought exercise, if we got rid of electricity, well, I think we'd all notice that right away. And we'd say, oh boy, that's something we kind of enjoy having. Even when that first was debuted 150 years ago, it was nice to have the lights on at night. Right, it's human beings.
Have
we enjoy
heat in
that.
your home when it's cold, and
and then so I extrapolate that to when we're sorry, this is getting a little bit long-winded here, but I would argue get rid of every CEO. It's going to take a long time before we notice, right? And I'm not saying off the earth. I'm saying give them a different job doing something meaningful.
Yes.
We got rid of every custodian in the world. As a former custodian, I believe this. We'd notice right away. And we'd say, get us back the custodians. We need that. We want a civilized society where we can go places and have a clean environment. I personally would pay all custodians what CEOs make. I think that is that important. But I like to think of things in that nature of let's really question it, interrogate it, and not try to always just accept the hype as just gospel right away. And I think that's what's happened with AI is, were you even talking about AI? I'm rambling so much today. But it's like gospel where they say, got to use this. It's going to change your world.
Yeah.
And then what I'm noticing is a lot of institutions are jumping right on that. And circling back to how Boise State's built their AI system on top of Anthropic's, API calls and things like that. Right now it's free. But as in all bait and switch sort of things, it's we'll give you a little bit now,
it's only
but
a matter of time.
Later,
we're going to get you hooked on it where you can't do anything without it.
Yes.
And then, so you're just going to have to pay.
When 10,000 students are relying on it, and when we have all of our systems uploaded into it, Amazon, who's invested $8 billion in Anthropic, probably wants their money back.
Yeah.
Google, who's invested $2 billion, probably wants some of that money back. They're not just going to keep all of our data sanctified. They will somehow use that data for their purposes. And they're going to say, well, now the monthly fees start up. So I don't know what it's going to be, but I do.
That is interesting.
It's going to be a lot of money. It's going to be a big charge, I
think,
once it hits. So I don't know how that's playing out. And I'm speaking from a bit of a point of ignorance, too. I want to be clear that I'm not in the meetings. I'm not on the task force. I tried to be, but I do read this stuff constantly. I've really interrogated how these models work. I know technically very much how they're sort of functional. I think they have a purpose. I just don't think we've really figured out a useful purpose for regular human beings yet.
Yeah, I agree with that. Trying to find ways for it to replace everything rather than use it as, I think, what it's always been intended as, a tool.
Yeah, it's just a tool to do things that most of us don't want or need.
Yeah, I agree with that. All right, we can move on. We finished the warm-up questions. What's the biggest change that you've seen in design over the years? And this could be centered on your experience with education. I feel like AI definitely was a big thing. Just went over that.
And I would say just on so if I take sort of my skepticism and disdain for AI out of the picture, AI is just it's an automation process, right? And automation is something humans have always done. We wouldn't have a society unless we automated things. So when I'm looking at design, just the way the industry has changed, I entered the business right as it was becoming viable to do it all on computer. I still learned a few Ruby lith cutting and a few manual processes up at U of I, but it was definitely in the context of you won't ever need to use this again. Learn PageMaker or learn Quark Express, right? But I threw those names out just now. Those don't exist anymore. I guess Quark still exists, but PageMaker's long gone.
Yeah.
No one really uses Quark unless you have like legacy systems and, you're kind of beholden to like older files or something. But just that nature of the technology evolves constantly. Like it's always changing. There's always new things coming online. And in a positive way, I do think the automation has democratized the tools for graphic design in a really great way. Where, it used to be if you wanted to make a statement as an individual and put something out into the world, either hand wrote a poster or you had to spend a lot of money to work with like a typesetter and graphic design professionals. But now it's like any person can use Canva. And I honestly think that's great. I think it's a perfect tool. It's easily accessible. Adobe saw that too. This is again where Adobe's got issues. They saw Canva and they're like, oh, we should have thought of that.
Yeah.
And so they made Adobe Express, which is like Canva, but just not quite as good.
No, I've used it and I'm like, I'd rather use Canva.
Yeah. And it's like a bait and switch. They want to get you into the subscription. Canva probably does subscriptions too. I don't actually subscribe to it, but
they do, but it doesn't really offer anything different except like some Photoshop elements that,
Okay. Yeah. And so
it's not included in like the free version, but if I have Photoshop, then I can just go do it myself and then throw it into Canva.
Yeah. And it's good to have that ability, I think, to jump between, kind of figure out the right tool for the job and then mix and match. But I do think with, this sort of democratization of the tools, to me, that's positive because I think a lot of people who have something important to say aren't necessarily graphic design professionals, and they're not necessarily going to get a degree in graphic design. And so I like the fact that anyone can have access to that. And I'm sort of remembering something from when I was in school. There was a critique we were doing, and one of the students put up a design, and one of the other professors, who wasn't even a graphic design professor, but they looked at it and they said, well, that looks like something the secretary made. And one, it's like, how just like sort of weird and sexist and like just, I don't know, makes a lot of assumptions, right? And at the time, my mom was a secretary. And I was like,
what do you mean by that?
Yeah, I was like, if she made a document that she was proud of, I want her to be proud of that. I don't think there's any harm in that. It was a very kind of judgy kind of attitude. Seinfeld, it's like, because you have an attitude is something Elaine says. But so I look now where, Instagram, any social media platform, TikTok, they have tools built in for video editing, for basic graphic design. And a lot of people are using these really effectively to say important things. And that's something that I really do like about this sort of shift in the industry to make tools much more accessible. When I was starting out, you had to have a decent Macintosh, and in those times the software wasn't cheap. You couldn't subscribe to it. You had to buy it outright. And so you'd have to save up $700 for Photoshop or find a good friend who just left their install CDs out on the counter and stuff. But now, any person who can get a million like free tools, Google Slides, honestly. I tell a lot of students, if you're a determined designer, Google Slides is everything you need, right? Like as far as core, just ability to mix type, mix images, create a canvas of a custom size. A lot of these tools are really accessible. So that's a long answer for a short question.
I feel like you answered that one in your introduction. So what do you wish every designer would remember from their design education?
Perhaps kind of on that same note, but just to remember that the tools are not the art form. That's something when I was in school, I was honestly quite confused about. I thought, it's going to be all Photoshop tutorials. When I graduated, I remember being a little disappointed. I was like, I feel like I didn't learn anything about like software. I was lucky that I had a bunch of jobs and high school experience where I'd been exposed to all the software and got tons of practice. But I remember graduating and sort of feeling like, well, I thought I was going to learn more about Photoshop. Even though I took a whole course that was just Photoshop, my core graphic design courses were about the fundamentals, about communication, about solving problems. And maybe that might be the thing, the phrase I would want to encourage people to hold on to is, graphic design is communication at its heart. it is about solving problems, but that, solving problems implies like bad things or like, I don't know, negative things to be overcome. And I'm looking at it more, the word problem is like an algebra problem. It's like we need to get an answer to something, or we need to get a result from some communication. So the problem could be as simple as my friend's band is playing this weekend and we want to fill the whole place. So that's a problem. Problem could be, the world is collapsing, but here's what you can do to like help lift it back up. That's a much different problem.
Yeah.
Sometimes the problem is we have a new brand of Mountain Dew flavor at Taco Bell and we want to make sure the whole world knows about it. So let's run a campaign for that. So whatever the problem is, graphic design at its core is an attempt to solve that problem visually, and to really think through, like when we're, struggling with the design, that's just a phenomenon I think is so common and integral to the process, is we sit with our solution to the problem and we're never quite sure. Like there's all this self-doubt, unless maybe it's just me, but I'm always very doubtful. I'm like, I don't know if I'm doing the right thing. I don't know why they can't see I'm a total fraud and no one's going to pay me for this work. But the times that I feel kind of the most despondent, it's when to get out of that negative feeling, it's when I start to think logically about what the design is trying to do and what the problem it's trying to solve is, where I can, if I'm struggling with any particular choice in a design, I try to link it back to what is this going to do practically? It's not just there for an aesthetic reason. Sometimes that's fine, but in general, I feel like any choice, any element, or any aspect of a design that we consciously put into the work, we have to be able to like draw a line from that choice back to the problem it's trying to solve. So
Yeah.
I don't know if that answers it, but
No, I think so.
I figure if I just talk long enough, we'll forget what the question was. And then that's a great strategy.
Yeah. I think I had a very similar experience, like from leaving, school and education of, I feel like I didn't learn anything, like you said, about the software. But the more I sat with it after graduation and everything, it was all about the ideas and the iteration and the process and the communication that comes into all of it. And I think everyone has a little bit of that imposter syndrome thing. I still do it. I'm doing a lot of work for this bar I work at right now, graphic design wise. And I'm always like, it's not perfect. It's not getting to the point. It's not telling the story I want it to tell. But then whenever I have them look at it, they're like, it's perfect. Like it says everything that it needs to say. And it's, better than anything we could have done. So It's good to have those reassurances, I think. So
yeah, and I think it's important to listen to that feedback too. I mean, some people will just lie and be nice and you did so well, but most of the time people are genuine and they say what they mean, and I think it's a phenomenon too. There's a term for this that I'm forgetting, but if you ever played the game when you were little, or even when we're big and just like needing to be weird, where you say the same word over and over again, and suddenly it stops having a meaning, and we're like, it doesn't even sound like a word after a while.
Yes.
I think that happens visually when we're looking at a design for a really long time. It's like we start to just only see the flaws or things we perceive as flaws that might not actually be flaws.
One little dot that you're hyper fixating on, and it's like that's something that doesn't even.
Yeah, we miss the larger context of it all of a sudden, and I think that's just a function of our biology, where our senses they're not objective, they're subjective. We perceive things in contrast. You've seen like optical illusions where things, shading looks in an unexpected way because we're thinking of it intellectually as like an absolute, our eyes see this level of light to this level of light in a very like objective scientific way, but it's really more of a comparison. And that's why, you can get used to sights and smells and sounds and start to ignore them because we start to tune them out, and our senses are much more about contrast. And I'm trying to tie this back to what we were talking about. But those moments when we're doubting, like when the work just looks terrible to us, even though we've been working on it a while, that extra perspective. And that's why the client feedback is essential. Just talking to peers, asking like, what do you think? Or just even just like taking a break to like walking away from it for a couple hours to get fresh eyes and come back at it is so essential. That
really helps. Something I've been doing with client work lately too is even if, they're not very like in tune to design or know really what's happening, I ask them what you like, what you don't like. And I'm always surprised by what they have to say. And I think they're always like, we're always spot on with the vision together, and they just communicate it in a different way that I can't. But then I am able to solve the problem that like I'm having with the design just because I heard, what they had to say about it.
Yeah.
And I've enjoyed that.
Yeah. And that's something we don't, I try to talk about it a lot because I'm, when I look back at my career, customer service, right? It's a big part of it. And I've had employers who, they'll fully admit, like, we would rather hire someone who had like restaurant experience or true customer service experience over someone who's only ever been in design school and hasn't had those soft skills, because a lot of the business is making sure the clients are happy, making sure like they're feeling heard. And I think that's maybe like underemphasized in some programs, is how much the client service matters, to a point though. And like, go on a whole other tangent about that.
Yeah.
Like not enduring toxicity, of knowing how to set boundaries and say,
Yes.
I've done my best. Some clients can't be pleased. Like
Oh, no.
anyone who's worked in any kind of industry knows. Some people just walk in and they're not after the dinner. They're after the fight about the dinner.
I think so.
Like it's like therapy that they don't want to pay for. So.
Yeah. I had one of those experiences the other day.
And maybe graphic design could have solved that problem. Like just a big poster that says "grow up."
Yeah. I'm doing something for you right now.
Yeah.
Like, are there any theories that you think seem abstract in design but end up meaning something more later?
Abstract. I mean, that idea of problem solving is a little abstract, thinking of the problem as really just a situation we want to see a different outcome for. Theories. So this is where I might have a little imposter syndrome of, I don't know if I know a lot of theories. I do have this, it's not really even a joke, but like I was given, crash courses in design before I went to school. And even in school, there were just themes that came out of it. And I sort of like to tell people, like, you don't even have to go to school if you can remember a couple things. 1, 2 typefaces maximum, only use an odd number of elements, strive for asymmetry over symmetry. I forgot what the last one, the contrast and all things like legibility, making sure if you can't read it, it's pointless, right? We have to always make sacrifices in service of just clarity of information. And it's like, if you can hold on to those couple ideas and just practice it for 1,000,000 hours, you're a designer in a way. So I don't know if that answers that question at all, but I feel like we can easily abstract design down to those couple things, because using those rules as a core, then you can do anything, right? You can make all these amazing, just again, gesturing to this random assortment of really cool things, but all of them maybe have those kind of core ideas, but just executed in 100 different interesting ways.
Yeah.
Because we always want to advance the art form too. We want to see things we've never seen before, but also to always remember we're never going to invent something that's never been seen before. That's just not logical, because everything in our culture, every word that we know, someone made up before us. And so everything logically has to flow from something that came before. Mm-hmm. If there's no previous context, then it's just like so abstract we don't know what to do with it, right? It's like some crazy asteroid crashing down from space, right? That's a weird example, but it's like there has to be some sort of previous context that we just as a shared
some beginning
understanding.
To move forward. Yeah. What's one piece of advice that you'd give to new designers today? To
endure. That's I'm really great about having really random bad movie references. So this movie reference is The Bridge Over the River Kwai. Have you seen this old film? I just saw it for the first time a couple months ago, and it really affected me. It's a classic film. It's a World War II story. It stars Alec Guinness, who later became Obi-Wan Kenobi in the Star Wars universe. So great connection there. But what in the beginning of the movie, Alec Guinness is, commanding this platoon of troops. I'm not a military person, so I'm getting all the terms wrong. I so apologize to people who have served. But he's a leader in the British Army, and he and his troops are captured. They're going to a POW camp. And as the leader, what they try to do is they try to break Alec Guinness and make him bow to their desires, basically thinking if we can make the leader do what we say, then all of the people who follow that leader will also do what we say. And so Alec Guinness, because he's, comes from a long British tradition of just nobleness and, noble self-control, those sort of ideas, he says, no, I will accept whatever punishment, but I will not do what you're telling me to do. And so they, torture him, basically. They put him in a heat box, and, it's in the jungle. It's very sweltering conditions. And in the movie, he just stays there. And they, the people running the camp, they keep offering incentives to come out, because they basically, spoiler alert, they're trying to build a bridge in this movie called The Bridge Over the River Kwai. And they need him to lead his troops to build the bridge, because without him, it's just falling apart. And even though he might die in this box, he just stays in it, because he knows that giving in and ceasing to endure that moment means he's going to lose anyway. And so he knows that if I endure this, if I stay in this box, what I will gain, if I get out of this, what I will gain is everything. If I end this prematurely, if I, believe their lies, that I can come out of here and I'll get a, hot shower and a decent meal. They're promising him all the creature comforts of the world. He knows that's a false thing. He knows, and then he knows too that he will have no leadership after that. No one will follow him. So I recommend, it's a great film to watch, because he endures this for so long. And then there finally is this moment, this is spoiling this for people, but it made me very emotional to see this, where he endures this and they let him out realizing they have lost. The people trying to keep him in this box realize he's just going to die in there, and then he's no good to anyone. And then their cause is lost too, because they will lose control over all his troops. And so symbolically, so he gets out of this torturous device where he's, I don't know how long has passed, a month or so. And he's just weak and frail, can't even walk when he gets out of it. But the reaction from the troops, who now saw him endure that, and they saw him go through this moment, on film, it is incredibly powerful. It is just like this emotional moment where you realize that sticking to principles, enduring discomfort, enduring terrible things, that is kind of, at least to me, one of the most important and noble things a human being can do. And enduring, it doesn't just mean physical pain. It means enduring a job market that is really bad right now. It means enduring going through school when we've got too many things to do and not enough time to do them. There are larger forces at play right now in the universe that are really difficult to comprehend. But the more we can endure this moment and try to have faith that on the other side of it, there are good things, that's really what, and I know it's not specific to design, but this moment is tricky. And I have the luxury of, like, I'm an old person now, or think I'm old, and I have seen things go up and down so many times in my short old life on this earth, and I have this kind of like belief, just from evidence, that even though things are kind of going to go this way, they have to come back up this way. That's just how the world works. But when a person's young and just starting out, without that perspective of it can come back up again, it might feel like all I've ever known is it's just like going like this. And I have faith that this moment in our design world where, again, it's being upended. It's like automation is changing everything. We thought we could count on Adobe 20 years ago to just be consistent and ever present as a force for good. That's kind of shifting. Employment is just all over the place. Like, a lot of people have to be more independent versus going to work at a company. There's all these things that are changing, but it's I don't know, to me, this idea that that's nothing new, that turmoil, that change is kind of more common than uncommon, at least if you look historically. Like, human society has always been turbulent. I think we just had a really blessed moment from the late 80s to the early 2000s where everything was kind of cool for a while. And we're like, oh, hey, maybe this could all work out. And look at what we've learned from the past, and we're not going to repeat those mistakes. And then all of a sudden we were like, well, or we could just do the same stuff we've always done as a society, and things got crazy. But I have just seen too many examples of just amazing, joyful things happening, of new developments coming out of the art world that are inspiring. There are too many good things that have happened. For me, it's just illogical to think that those can't keep happening, right?
Yeah.
There's always going to be down times for sure. But the advice, I'm trying to get back to the answer again. And this is a strategy too. If you ever don't know the answer, just talk so much that you forget what the question was. But
maybe you'll circle back.
yeah, yeah, eventually they'll just move on. But to endure this moment and to know that all hard work is honorable, that is just a core belief of mine. And that sometimes is the hard work of being unemployed, of being underemployed, of, having to go it alone and figure it out and maybe take a side step from our career trajectory just to like pay the bills or whatever it is. But just to believe that it will get better. And I also have this luxury of having made a ton of mistakes in my career. Like I've had the IRS threaten to take my house before. I've seen kind of like the ultimate levels of how bad it can get when you make mistakes. And all of those things, though, they passed. It sounds so trite, but when people say this too shall pass, that's what my mom would always say. And I'd be like, Mom, this isn't going to pass. But it does. It really does. Some things stick with you for a while, but it's the this difficult moment will turn into something else. I really believe that. I wish I could say when. I wish I could say it's going to get better sooner, but I think it might get worse before it gets better. But I've also seen, in the same way that when I was starting out, there were people that were from an older generation still working in some of the agencies, and they're like, I don't know how to use the computer. I don't want to touch PageMaker. I'm creative director. I come up with the ideas. And I would think like, well, sucks to be you, old timer. I know how to run PageMaker and Freehand and all these programs that no longer exist. And so I'm going to overtake you. I'm going to like take your work. And, I was 20 something and I just was ambitious and I would think things like that. Now it's upside down where I'm the one who's like, I don't want to learn AI and I don't want to it just doesn't even appeal to me to do my career using AI in any sense. Like I have to be perfectly frank about that I don't see for me personally, I'd rather switch careers at this point. I don't see AI as a thing I need to embrace. It doesn't, at least in this format, in this iteration of it.
I agree with that too.
It is not in any way producing things that are compelling. I think we're all like seeing the AI slop and we're like craving things that aren't that are tangibly not that. Mm-hmm. So I do think another maybe encouragement to designers is to, look historically at anything that exists is a reaction to something that came before, at least culturally. And I think that, AI is a reaction to something. I don't know what exactly, but there could be this amazing moment now that there could be a human reaction to AI where brands that want to differentiate messages that are truly important, those might need to be designed in a much more hand process, analog kind of human way. And even if it ultimately is, like taken a photo of and put back on Instagram or something. Yeah. But I do feel like there is maybe going to be this reaction to this sort of over digitization, sort of over simplification of, we've all seen the logo comparisons where it's like everyone looks like this minimalist, like hyper modern like type now. But I think there could be like kind of a resurgence of let's get back to making things a little bit fancy. Let's have our Art Deco, Art Nouveau moments again, or not great art historian, so it might not be the best terms, but anyway, I'm really rambling with this answer, but it's like, I don't want people to lose hope because there's always hope. Like if nothing else, we must have hope. And the sun will rise every day. I know how trite that sounds, but it's true. Like there have been days where I'm like, well, I don't know what else I can count on, but like, there it is again. So I've got one more chance. And it's really true, I think. It's not easy though. It doesn't make the pain go away. But just to know that, I don't know, sometimes setting our minds to go, I'm going to endure this. It's not going to be comfortable. It's not going to be like what I thought was going to happen. And that's always the tough moment too, of like expectations and reality kind of like butting heads. But to, I don't know, just set our expectations to, it's going to be tough for a while, but we can do it. We can endure this. We can somehow find ways to elevate the art form. We can still find ways to be relevant. We can find ways, even if we're not getting, if we sort of left school thinking, well, I want to work for, big brands doing amazing kind of fashionable work. it could be that we have to reorient our thought process about being designers back to that problem solving angle to say, how am I going to be useful to humanity? How am I going to be useful to the people around me who could benefit from my graphic design skills? And to look for ways to be of service in that regard. And sometimes that helps when the moments are really difficult. At least for me, I can only speak for myself, but the more I chose to stop looking inward when I was feeling really despondent, and the more I tried to look outward and to say, yeah, there's not anything great going on in here right now, but maybe if I take a step out of that and I look out to the world, like doing all these weird gestures today, but if I think outwardly, how can I be of service to others? How can I let go somehow of this internalized kind of dread and just try to look out at the world and go, well, logically, I still have power. I have some ability to do something. I'm going to figure out what that is, and I'll endure this moment by doing something. Mm-hmm. I'm going to shut up for a moment.
And I think that's what will make the outcome or the other side of the hill be all the much more rewarding.
Yeah. And I think if it's okay to add one more thought to this, it's that your editing is going to be like a real challenge on this one too, I imagine. You're probably taking mental notes of like, okay, I've got to cut out like minutes 15 to 27 of that one. But this idea that, time keeps moving always. And sometimes we have to, I think our modern world, it's all about goals and like success, and I got to achieve this. And there's like a marker of that success. I learned, from, when I started sorry, this is going to ramble a bit, but when I started teaching in this most recent iteration, I have to admit, I showed up with so much imposter syndrome because it was all this academic kind of theoretical information. And I was like, I've been in this business 30 years and I've never heard these words before. And so I got really panicked. I'm like, I don't know what this means, but I ended up learning so much from those early classes because, my colleagues at BSU were like just brilliant. And so I really am grateful I've had the chance. It's almost like I got to go back to school and kind of like learn, some more fundamental theories about design. And this has also caused me to lose my train of thought here, but talking about time and, everything's so goal oriented, and we talk about signifiers in graphic design. And that's where I was trying to go with this is I learned about signifiers, which I never really considered in my whole career, but now I think about it a lot. I want to come back in a minute to what a stop sign signifies, because it's a weird intellectual exercise I do these days. But, so much of our world, like success, the signifier was money, or the signifier was a material possession, or even just status, whether it wasn't any of those things. I'm a creative director and, whatever sort of status comes with that. And lately I've been trying to think more along the lines of, the goals are important. They drive us forward, but that's not the thing, right? It's a lifestyle is the thing. And can we get to a point where our lifestyle is something that is good and rewarding and intrinsically like something that feeds our soul? And so that's something I'm trying to look at now is, if you have goals, if you have things you want to do, pursue those for sure, but make sure they kind of align with the pursuit of that goal builds a lifestyle that is important and meaningful, and not in a material kind of way, but in a more kind of like soul searching sort of like, I want to be a happy human being kind of way. And then, when times get difficult, you have that goal you're looking toward. That's kind of a plan. And I do this a lot where I have kind of ideas of what I truly need going into the future. And the days when I wake up and I'm just like, I just don't want to do any of it. But I have this tiny little voice, this indomitable spirit I try to hold on to that's like, stick to the plan. And whatever that plan may be for a person. But it does a few things where we can have that, whatever that kind of idea of where I want to go pulls us into the future. So we've got our future taken care of. It keeps us in the present moment of like, well, this lifestyle I'm building in service to trying to get to some of these goals, even if I never get to those goals, right? Because that's, I think it was Aristotle said, let go of outcomes. Like our thoughts are the only thing we can control. So you have to let go of those outcomes, but it keeps us in this present moment of mindfulness of like, yeah, I'm working toward this long term, but today is a beautiful day and I'm like able to enjoy life because I know who I am and what my values are. And then, so we've got the future, we've got the present, and then following this kind of idea, it also makes looking back to the past a lot less full of regret, where it's like, even the days I felt terrible, I was working on the plan, whatever that plan may be.
Yeah.
And so I'd like to think of it in that regard of like future, present, and past are really our whole context for perceiving the world. And we have to kind of make sure we're not feeling bad in any of those areas. And so when we're stuck and we don't know where to go, or we feel paralyzed, sometimes thinking of building a lifestyle, not in like a material way, but in like a meaningful way. I don't know, it helps. I'm just really rambling at this point, but
that's a good way of putting it. And like, there's always going to be like the roadblocks and the obstacles that you're going to deal with and on your journey on this path, but it doesn't mean that they have to be, for the worst. They might be an important lesson or something that you need to take note of to move forward.
And I would argue those roadblocks, like we, instinctively, we don't want them, right? Because in primitive context, roadblocks are really serious, right? Like I'm out in the snow and I don't know how to build a fire. Yeah. That's really bad. Like that's not going to end well. But in, our modern sort of like civilized context, a lot of roadblocks really are like character building things. And it's like, we don't want them to happen. Like we would do anything to like make them not happen. But I kind of want to encourage people to not to go out and seek out like, dangerous roadblocks or bad things happening, but more to say, yeah, I've been through some stuff, but I wouldn't be who I am without those things. I would not have figured out this, or I wouldn't have understood this approach. That project just going totally off the rails and that client screaming at me was horrible, but I now know something from that. To always try to see those difficulties and roadblocks as some sort of, I don't know, you have to have a little bit of pain to like realize like how good it can be, I think. And if it's okay to just like go back to that stop sign signifier,
yeah.
This is a random tangent, but someone in one of my 200 level classes, we were talking about signifiers, and they raised their hand and they said, well, is this, are you meaning what this other very smart person said about signifiers? And I was like, I don't know who that person is. I've never heard of this. So this thought may not land, but when I was thinking about signifiers, this sort of relates to advice I would give like students is like, when you're thinking about work, our instinct in this modern world is to get it done as fast as possible and make it as just whiz bang kind of crazy as possible. And I'm like, that's not very deep thinking. It's usually pretty shallow. And so when I'm considering a problem, I want to encourage all students to like really think to like crazy levels of depth about the problem. And so I use this idea, and I don't know if this will land at all, but if we think about stop signs, right? It's the most basic graphic design. It's an octagon, it's red, and it says stop.
Yeah.
Right? But it's effective. We need them. And so this exercise is, well, what does that signify? And a common answer, well, it signifies car should stop. And it's like, cool. Well, let's go deeper than that. Was there a time before stop signs? It's like, well, yeah, most of human history, we had no stop signs. Well, why did we make stop signs? Because Henry Ford was like, hey, I have this idea to, these horses are real pain. What if we had cars? They can go faster and do all sorts of fun things. And suddenly we realized, well, now that everyone has a car, people are colliding all the time, and we're seeing horrific accidents, and we're like picking up pieces of human beings, and like, this is terrible. And so we thought, well, we might need a sign to like stop that, literally. And so we invented stop signs and traffic lights. And, there used to be human beings that would direct traffic before traffic lights were really automated. But going even deeper than that, I was like, well, why don't we want to be picking up like, carcasses off the road and like dealing with like crumpled heaps of metal constantly? It's because that's chaos. That is a life no one wants to lead constantly. And so when we like keep going deeper and deeper with the idea of a stop sign, it signifies like a civilized society. It signifies bringing order to chaos. It signifies living a life that is free of horrible things. Mm-hmm. And so, and I know that's really kind of obtuse and like grandiose or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's like, I want to encourage students, when you're thinking of your work, if it's not feeling right, to keep thinking on deeper and deeper levels, get to weird places like that, because sometimes that sparks an idea that then will influence the final design in a way that makes it so much more compelling, makes it solve the problem better. But it's until we really sit with it and give it, some time to like get to the core of like, what are we really trying to show here? Finding that truth, I think it just makes the work so much better.
Yeah. I like that.
That might be one you have to just cut out.
Or metaphor. Metaphor is the word. Metaphor.
I can never remember if it's simile or metaphor.
Yeah, one of the two.
Simile is like or as, right?
Yeah.
Metaphor. So it might
but
be more
I think
metaphorical.
that's a good metaphor and perspective on life, and it can be used in many different areas, whether it is towards design or just life in general. So
yeah, it helps. I don't know. I feel like it helps me through moments where I'm really frustrated and trying to just like process all the stuff that's going on. And it's like, if I think about
takes you back a step and makes
think
you
of it
really
logically
think
and
about something.
help like focus on what's the solution here.
Yeah. All right. Final question. Do you have any questions for us?
I didn't think of any, I have to admit, but let me make some up. So, what's happening these days? Tell me because I'm, in the classroom all the time, so I'm a little detached from like the word on the street. But what's the vibe like in the Boise market these days for a young designer?
Still a challenge.
Nothing really.
I
At
didn't.
least for like value of pay, there's nothing really.
What would it be okay to ask? Like, what are some of the numbers that you're hearing out there? Because I will take this back to my classes
seen,
directly.
Like 18.
18 is one of the highest on
Dollars?
average. An hour, yes.
An hour.
The highest I've seen is, at least per hour, is I think 22, which I was like.
Lowest 14, and a lot of them are around there.
Yeah.
14 to 18.
The only time you find those like high salary ones is if it's like a big well-known company around here. Like I know one for Simplot popped up, and I was debating on applying, but I was like, I don't know if I'd want to do that. But that one I think was a pretty high-paying one. But it's not that great.
And a lot of companies or places too are requiring 5 years of experience for an entry-level position now. So everyone needs to get their internships and jobs underway as soon as they can in college because it's rough.
And I would respond to that 5 years of experience with just fake it. Just like have a good portfolio, and sometimes you can talk through that limitation. But
And so that's what I've been doing, is just doing a bunch of like freelance projects and stuff. And I have been working this whole time,
Yeah. I think you're figuring it out. I mean, that's really, in a way there is, and I'm not trying to like in any way diminish the pain of this moment economically, right? Like it's bigger than all of us, right?
Yeah,
and it's
it is.
in a way, not to be doom and gloom, but it's worse than they're painting it, because the people who are they're kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel for the billionaires right now. So this, to me, at least what I've seen historically, it's like the last gasp, where like the people who are getting super rich are like figuring out how to just like ka-ching the last couple nickels out of the stock market. But it's going to crash. Like we're long overdue, right?
Oh.
If we ask, because the stock market's supposed to be based on something, like what's it based on right now? There's no manufacturing. AI is not driving any kind of profit at all. It's going to turn upside down.
Yeah, I have this feeling that something's going to change here soon. I did land a temporary contracted position with Quadient, but it ends in November, so I have to start looking again for something after that. But I work from home doing design stuff for them, and that's been quite nice.
In a way, it's like, I don't know, we have to be trying to think of an ancient career. We just have to travel from town to town seeking adventures, right?
Yeah.
It's like
Hop around.
Yeah. But I think that's important, to seek out whatever those experiences are, even if it's unpaying, even if it's a loss leader, as we like to say, but to not give up, to say, ask ourselves, is this really what I want to do? Do I love this art form? Is this something that's meaningful to me? And just for context, I can talk about times that I've seen, the .com crash of like 2001, very similar, where like web technology was overhyped. There's an internet company for everything. Pets.com is kind of the example they always trot out.
Yeah.
But it all just overnight was just gone. And I remember that as a young person, I was unemployed at the time. I had to go to the unemployment office. That was very humbling. Here's a fun story that I didn't know what office to go to. So I walked into the Department of Labor thinking that's where I went for unemployment. And I just walked into like a corporate, like cubicle office, and they see me just as like this 25-year-old, like walking around.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Are you okay?" I'm like,
Right spot.
they're like, "Unemployment's the next building over." So yeah, I remember having to get in line, and it was just very humbling. And also realizing at that time, there was nothing in that department that could help me because they were, bringing out jobs they had in their little database that were in no way related to graphic design. And at that time, maybe it was just still such a, I don't know, specialized profession or something. Now I think it would be much more common in all the books.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, the benefits for unemployment weren't worth it, right? And so that was a moment where I was like, well, I think as a freelancer, I can get a little bit more. So I guess I'm encouraging, like, keep doing that, what you're doing, like, keep fighting whatever work it is, right? Do that, hold on to that little bit. So it's, even though it's going to kind of bottom out, something will rise from that. So after 2001, a lot of work did kind of come back, right? Like things swung a different way. 2008 then took it back down again. So certain industries, right? Like the subprime mortgage industry suddenly didn't need a lot of designers anymore. But, things came back up from then. And so I have no doubt, this isn't the end of civilization. I have to at least hope that, right?
Yes, I hope not.
If it is, I'm going to spend my weekend a very different way, right? I have to hope things will come back from here. So hold on to that faith.
Yeah, keep trying. I've kind of felt like lately I found my little like niche in like the freelance area around here. I've been doing a lot of work. I've had so many like local bands and artists reach out to me to do stuff for them. Like I said, I've been doing stuff for the beer garden I work at. And so then that's had other beer gardens reaching out for me for work too. So it's just been like, okay, there's this little community here that is interested. And they're always like, I saw what you did for them and I want something similar. So that's been really working out.
I think that's essential, that idea of connections and just in a logical sense, right? And that's another maybe thing I'd encourage is it can be very easy, and I'm number one, person guilty of this, of guilt's too strong of a word, but it's a pattern I fall into of getting very emotional, of like feeling the dread and not thinking logically about it. And so at any point, if that dread becomes overwhelming, in whatever way we can, just try to step back and think mathematically, think logically. And so if we think about work and where it comes from, it doesn't just appear out of nowhere. It comes from a context. It comes from a connection, someone who knows someone who knows someone who needs a design. I can't think of any projects I got my whole career, and I've been doing this 30 some years now. There was nothing that just fell out of the sky. It was always, there was a context. Someone knew me who knew someone else, or I reached out and really tried to like get a certain kind of work. But so logically, everything comes from a connection. It's a human being who knows another human being. And so I think that strategy you're taking of doing whatever you can, even if it might be something that's like minimal money or even a donation, but to keep just mathematically adding that list of connections to your roster, then that opens up possibilities just logically. Whereas the inverse of that, if a person never reaches out, never tries to meet people, I've been to a ton of like, I don't know, industry type events that were a total waste of my time. But in the sense of there were a few that weren't a waste of my time. So if I had gone to none of them, none of those connections would have opened up. So to hold on to that, to like think like, if I just keep in good faith trying to endure this moment, do good work, be connected to people, that will eventually, it's going to lead somewhere. Not to say it's going to solve all the problems. Here's $1 million salary to just like retire, which wouldn't even be that much these days. But it's like, sorry, it would be a lot, but you know what I mean? It's like, it's not what it was 10 years ago. But to hold on to that idea of connections, and I've just seen it so many times in my career that you get a random call and it's because of something you did a while ago, and you never know what's going to come back. So, and conversely too, with that, maybe not conversely, but bad experiences, or when client things go horribly wrong, trying to always like exit with grace and, don't flip the table over, which I've done before. And when you burn a bridge, make sure you want to burn it.
Yeah.
It is another bridge
Has
over
to
the
be real
Require
good
reference.
yeah.
Spoiler alert, they blow up the bridge at the end. But once it's gone, it's like it is real hard to get back.
Yeah.
So
I agree. And I'm such an introvert. It's really hard to go out and network. And I was always told that, you have to go talk to people to make these connections because this is what, ultimately is going to help you. And I was like, no, I can do it myself. And I have found that going out and making connections is, in fact, the way to do it because even I've found so much opportunity just the last couple months, just like sitting at a coffee shop or at one of the beer gardens, like just working on my work. And a lot of people come up and ask like what I'm doing. And it's,
be visible.
Helps so much. Yeah.
And I think that idea too of serving others, we can, and this is really a theme with me and students and young designers, to be the change you want to see in the world. That's a very cliched phrase, but if you see something that you're like, I could design that better, or that I have a different angle on that could be more effective. Like go into it with not just, I want to show up that other designer and like show how cool my skills are. But if it's more of a genuine, like, oh, I think this could help. That's if you are going to do a cold call kind of approach or like reach out to someone in a design context, having a calling card of like, hey, I thought this could help. Could I talk to you about it?
Yeah.
That opens doors. That is a way to, maybe it ends up being just like a barter kind of thing of like, oh yeah, well, I'll give you free French fries and thanks for typesetting that menu, whatever. You just never know where a goodwill initiative like that could lead. And you have to like shake up the variables. If
the more I like do it too, it like the easier it gets. And so like every chance I get, even if I'm like working at the bar and someone mentions something about needing something kind of related to design, I always like, hey, I just heard this. Like, I know people or I do stuff. Like, what are you looking for? And it's, I'm always surprised by how many people actually, need designers at all times.
It's a little like a video game. It's like if you try to play the game where you don't, do the grinding to get the items and like the resources, trying to fight the boss is really tedious, and you have to like keep trying over and over again, hope you get lucky. Where it's like, or you might just, what's the South Park thing? You might kill boars for like, a long time. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I'm a little bit more capable, or I just have a little more confidence going into these things.
And even if nothing comes from half the people you talk to, like at least, the bugs in their ear and they could always find you.
Just practice. Yeah. And it's, but none of it's easy. And I want to make sure I'm clear in that, like, I'm not, anything I'm suggesting, I know it's not like an instant solution and like, oh, this will just fix everything. And also just general advice to any young people. It's like, if it's too good to be true, it is. Like, don't fall for scams. Anything that seems just like, oh, I won the lottery. No, you didn't. There's another agenda.
There's a catch.
I have been ripped off, scammed so many times. And this is a few students at BSU are experiencing this right now. Where it's like a cold email about work. They prepay with many thousands of dollars and then demand the money back later. But they also, once they demand it back, they take everything else out of the person's account. I think we're up to 3 people now in the program that we've seen this year. So just on that theme of like, it's always going to be hard work. Like, there's going to be some effort applied. So just be wary of, in desperate times like this, there's a lot of people, unfortunately, who have decided the best way to navigate it is to prey upon that desperation.
Yes.
And if you're in a mode where you're really desperate, it's hard to think clearly, and it can be easy to be taken advantage of. And so I just want to caution everyone who might be listening to like really listen to that. And don't never give your bank information to anyone, ever. They don't need it. It's not relevant or useful.
Unless you're actually like hired on somewhere and they're asking for that stuff for your direct deposit or whatever, but
it's like, you'll know, right?
It'll be obvious.
No one, general advice, no one approaches us in the world because they just love us so much. They don't know us at all and they just want to give us something nice. That just doesn't happen. I'm so sorry, but anyone on the street that talks to you, it's always about they're trying to grift or get something, and it sucks, but it's like we have to be aware of that.
I've gotten a lot of like spam texts. It sounds like people have gotten my number off of like Indeed or something.
Yeah.
And so they make it sound like it's like a job opportunity or whatnot. But then they're like, oh, you'll receive this cash bonus if you sign on now. And then the link is really sketchy. And I'm always, who falls for that?
Yeah. I think, and
It's hard.
I think a lot of good people fall for that stuff, not because of anything other than just wishful thinking or
Well, finally,
desperation.
it's happening,
Yeah, but it's, I don't know. Despite all of it, though, there's reason for hope. I really believe that. But sometimes we have to,
too.
the hard work is finding the reason.
Yeah. All right. Any other questions you have for us, Ryan?
I don't think so. I don't even know if I asked you a question.
I've
rambled on so much of this. Any, maybe one final question, just at a more technical level. What are the tech apps? What are the pieces of software or services that you're finding? Anything that's like new and fresh? I'm so out of the loop on anything cool, so
I don't know if anything.
I just use the Adobe suite, really. I don't
I've been
really use anything else.
actually using Canva of all things a lot lately, for work, and also there's this design project I'm working on right now for a client. This is one thing I like about Canva, is because it's collaborative and accessible to everyone. Like, she asked me to do a whole bunch of like Canva templates designed, but that she can edit, and it's cool that I'm able to do those things, because not everyone knows how to use these pieces of software, or they don't have, the design eye or whatever, but they're still able to use them for their needs as a business or whatnot.
yeah, and I think that's a great approach. It's very selfless, right? Like there is, or at least in the past, I've seen a culture of like, we don't want to give the client any control over the work, and I get that to a certain degree as well. Like sometimes you don't want people to damage something, but I tend to be more like, I don't know, old school approach of like, well, when I take my car into the shop for service, I want the car back. I don't want them to like hold on to it or, lease it to me or anything. And I think what you're doing there, like, listening to the client and understanding their need is to be able to make their own changes, even though it could be a little painful at times. It's it's for a good reason.
Yeah.
It's because that's what they want and what they're wanting to pay for. And I think, with the Adobe tools, it's like if you hold on long enough with those, they're going to become cool again, just because they've fallen out of favor so much. I'm teasing.
Yeah.
They are the standard, right? And
and it's also just like I've learned all the like shortcuts and tools and whatnot, so it's just like what's easiest.
Yeah.
I guess I also use Corel. Have you heard of Corel?
Oh yeah, wow. I haven't heard that. Goes way back to my days at Kinko's.
I think I use that more than my Adobe stuff, mainly because of work. But
yeah, it has kind of, especially in like what I'm trying to think of the term for the industry here, in like specialty printing and promotional type.
Yeah, it's just like really good for. I mainly use a laser engraver, and I don't know. We have the option to use Illustrator, but we only have a CS6 version, and I just think Corel's a little bit easier.
Yeah,
better shortcuts. You can kind of work a little bit faster, because like there's no need for intense like tools or any like intense designing for trophies. So I'm just gonna use this. It's pretty similar to Illustrator too.
Yeah. So. And I do think when you're talking about like intense tools, like anything Adobe markets on their sort of social media, it's some of them are interesting, right? These new tools, features, but some of them too are just very gimmicky. And I'm one of the first big things I did as far as promotion for them was the Puppet tool. You remember this?
Yes.
Like Flash and After Effects. They like a whole version of Creative Suite back then. They were hanging it on the Puppet tool, and a lot of the professional people were like, cool, but could you just make the PDF export work better?
Yeah.
Or whatever. So a lot of, I don't know, I think there's a pressure sometimes of like responding to the marketing we're being fed about the tools. And instead of realizing like, really just with a sketchbook and like a photocopier, I might be able to actually do something really amazing that solves my client's problem and is an effective design. So to try to resist that, like, I don't know, the FOMO or whatever, like no one's missing out. If you're not using whatever new crazy feature,
Yeah.
not missing out on anything. Like, is it even needed? Like, always ask that.
I guess another one that I've been using lately is the new Adobe. I guess it's not that new. Adobe Fresco for like drawing. You could draw actual vectors easily, kind of like Procreate. Because I like Procreate because it's easy to draw in there, but it's raster. It doesn't have vectors.
iPad?
It is on iPad, and it's free for everyone. But I've been
For now. No.
for now.
Yeah,
You're right. You're
that is
right.
a for
It's
now
only a
type
matter of
thing.
time.
Or until they discontinue
Yeah.
it. Like Adobe Arrows discontinued. So a ton of students were like, oh, I was doing a cool AR project. It's like, well, good luck.
Yeah.
They could afford to keep making, and that's the thing. Adobe's billions of extra dollars. That's where I get so frustrated. It's like, it's a choice. It is just a choice they're making. And erg.
But I've been learning how to use that, and it's set up very similar to like the iPad version of Illustrator. And then also there's like some similar elements to like Procreate as well. It's super simple, but I've been drawing sticker designs for people on there, and that's been kind of fun doing it. And it makes it so much easier than using my mouse trying to vectorize, illustrations and stuff. So that's been a cool update, I think.
When you mentioned stickers, one, thank you for a while ago. I got this amazing pack of stickers in the mail, and it totally made my day. But I feel like stickers are having a moment right now.
Yeah.
It's just a thing. Like when I was in second grade, there was a real moment. Like we all had sticker albums, and like there were like different like hierarchies of stickers. Like certain ones had glitter or whatever. It was like super cool. But I think in a way of like, I don't know if it's a direct response to like the AI sort of over digitization, but I kind of feel like people like stickers because they're real and it's like a symbol of something and it is very concrete. And I don't know, I hope it keeps up. Maybe there's something beyond stickers that will evolve that we can't predict yet. But that's a symbol of kind of what I'm talking about. I think there's a reaction to all this like homogenized, super digital.
Tactile. I always say
things.
that we like long for something tactile. We want to hold it in our hands, and just because we're always staring at a screen all day, we want to be able to like interact with something or see something that we connect with. So
yeah, it's essential. I mean, we are physical beings, right?
Yeah.
Like automobiles, there's a big thing right now of like no one wants to touch screens. We want knobs because you can keep your eyes on the road and turn up the volume on the car, So I think we'll hopefully get more of that design. That could be a thing a young designer wants to explore is like, how do we harness this moment where people are sick of flat screens? Let's work toward that. I don't know what the answers are,
either.
but
They think bringing back the flip phone's going to be the thing.
I kind of want that. I want a phone that sits in my house that never leaves the wall, so I can choose.
Me too.
That's the thing too, where I have like kind of an extra generation of remembrance of how things used to be.
Yeah.
And when we could walk away from it all, I don't know, things were slightly better. I'm not trying to sound all like back in my day. But it's like a thing where email has not connected us, it's separated us.
Yeah, I feel like we get so wrapped up in everything that's going on our screens, whether it's for work or if it's the media or whatnot, that it makes it hard. I think maybe that's part of the struggle with the younger generation needing AI all the time is like we can't come up with our own thoughts, or like the imagination's kind of dulled just because everything is already in front of us. So it's hard to picture anything else when, that's all you know. And so it's a thing I've been trying to do for myself is like just have some time every day to stay away from it all, go outside, do something tactile, like sketch in my sketchbook or read a book or, create something, make food, like just go back to the basic things.
Yeah, these are essential things. I think it is vital. It's like not just a fad. It's like there's a reason we kind of long for these, and I think it's like it's in our DNA. Like
for sure. But
well, I have maybe one closing thought. That's just a random thing. But this is more advice to help people navigate situations, because I remember when I was starting out, I was confused all the time. And because it's like I thought I knew what was happening in a company or my career, and I just like, something would seem super illogical. And so this theory that I've been I'm sure someone else has articulated this in a much more eloquent way, but I started to think about what is absolutely a real undeniable law of science and what's just a choice someone made. And so I've been on this kick lately of thinking like gravity is the only thing that we have to obey, right? There's no way, at least as far as I know, to say, I don't really agree with what gravity's doing. I'm going to just like do my own thing, right? If you drop something, you know exactly what's going to happen. It's going to fall to the ground. Well, anything else in the world that we experience, my new theory, it's a choice a human being made. So whether it's like at work, we might, I used to think like, I'm not getting to the point I want to get because there's something wrong with me. I'm not working hard enough. I'm not doing the right things. Hindsight being 2020, and I've got a lot of hindsight now, I can look back at a lot of instances where I'm like, oh, actually, no, that was just a choice my boss made. Plain and simple. My boss chose to pay me this and pay someone else this. I really want to say this to like any young women that are listening, but I've, talking to colleagues now that I'd worked with for many years, I can look back at some of our shared employments where we were sitting next to each other doing the same job, and I was making considerably more than my colleague who had the same amount of experience, just happened to be a woman. So I think that gender pay gap is still very real. And so that's another case of that's a choice that someone made to do that. So I encourage people, if you're working in an environment with other people, talk about your salary. There's no law against it. They try to make us feel like we shouldn't talk about that, but that's, again, a choice. They want to make that culture so that people aren't compensated fairly. And I hate that. I hate like that. This is how the world is. But one of the strategies I think I want to encourage as an antidote to that in a way is to start seeing things as what is actually real and undeniable and I can't get around it, and what is something that is simply just a choice someone else made. And I'm still like, other than gravity, I'm not finding a lot of things that are just this way because they have to be this way. They're this way because someone made a choice for it to be that way.
Yeah.
And if we see it like that, then sometimes it's easier to go, oh, well, I don't agree with that choice. I would like to choose to do something different. And so just thematically, I want to like encourage people to, just the same way, if I drop this, I know what's going to happen. There's no choice in that matter. Well, I chose to drop it, but gravity took
chose
over.
To catch it.
But everything else with employment, with work, with career goals, with personal life, with just any kind of like pursuits we're doing, if you run into obstacles or if you're experiencing something and it just seems confusing and we can't like navigate it emotionally, to try to get back to logic, to mathematics, to just thinking very clearly about what's going on, and to ask, is there some person in this process that has made a choice that I don't agree with? And to like pursue that and really interrogate that. Because a lot of times choices are made, and I'm not saying it's always like evil, like malicious intent. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's just someone thought it had to be this way and they made the choice and we have to kind of live with it.
Yeah.
But at this point, I'm like, we don't have to live with it. We could say, I would actually like to choose something different for me and the world I want to see. So
yeah, it's an important thing to do. All right. Do we want to move on to the font of the week, Ty?
Sure.
Yeah.
Quickly go over it.
I had grand ambitions of bringing this beautiful design because I thought it was such a cool font, and I didn't. So
it's okay.
I didn't do my homework.
That's right. Fine.
But get into variable fonts. They are amazing. This is a variable one, right?
Yes.
Styro. Yeah.
This one was interesting to work with because it was very condensed at the lighter version, and then at the bold one, it was very wide. So it was interesting to like work with those because they contrasted each other a little too greatly together, I think.
Did you see the punctuation stuff? It's like insanely light. When you're on,
yeah.
Black, it's like
the exclamation point was like so skinny.
So I had an idea for it, and I was typing with it. I was like, why is it like this? I was looking through the glyphs, and I was like, this is the only one they have. So I had to change my idea because I was like, I don't want to use that. So
that was a choice they made.
Yeah.
I was like, why would you? It's a variable. Like, have different weights so we can at least pick. But they're like, no. I was like, all right. I could have expanded it on my own, but I was like, no.
I did like this one, though. I thought it was very unique.
I used one like this before. I think it's called like Josh Me or something on Adobe.
I thought because it was kind of stencily, it like went very well with some grunge, some texture. So I put some texture over mine. I made this. Whenever I don't know what to do, I do a band poster. So I did one for Somber.
Oh, I don't know that artist.
They're fairly new artists, but they're on a tour right now because their new album, I Barely Know Her, just came out. And so I just found a date of one of their shows on October 13th at the Anthem in Washington, D.C. and messed around with some texture on the letters and everything. And I paired it with Citrus Gothic. Because
I've never heard of that one.
It was hard to do like the whole poster in Styro.
Yeah.
It was a little too
It's
bold.
definitely
It's
hard to
display, you
read.
know. Yeah, in some areas it is hard to read too. So
Yeah. I remember when I was using this one and that other one I was talking about, the M, when you mix it with other letter forms, since it's just 3 vertical lines, sometimes you can't tell the difference, like when the next or previous letter starts. But this one was nice because on the middle line, it like tapers.
mm-hmm.
So you can actually tell it's an M. The other one I use, it's just 3 lines, and then the last one had a curved on the top right edge. You're like, okay. So, yeah.
I liked the H too. I don't know if you looked at it much. The H is very interesting. But yeah, that's the M he was talking
Even
about.
the E. The E is pretty interesting as well.
It is interesting. I didn't actually realize that one.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting on how people would design it when they take this like approach with the vertical strokes and whatnot.
Yeah. What did you do for yours, Ty?
I don't really know how to describe it. Just another poster, kind of going off of that one right there. So that one was like based off of Tokyo and the Tokyo Tower. So this one I did based off of Kyoto and Kinkakuji. Tried to do a little bit of Photoshop.
I
Probably
see you
gonna go
added
back and do a
some
little
clouds in the...
Well, so
Or it's a clip
I just took the full image and then clipped it over the text, so it kind of continues. You'd have to like pay attention, but I was like, why not?
Yeah, because
just
I can see
I don't
a little
think,
bit of
like,
the cloud in there.
I didn't really want to do a solid blue, so I was like, and I really liked how vibrant this photo I picked was. So, and then I just found a little blurb about the temple online. So pretty simple, but kind of similar to that one, but not quite. But yeah. I also kind of separated, like added more space between the forms just because it was pretty thin, and I wasn't a huge fan of that, so I kind of wanted to space it out a bit. So I did change it up a little bit, but it's still, the same.
Yeah. I found that the very condensed version was very hard to read, especially when it was very small because everything was so close together. So I ended up using it more as like the display with the extra bold version at top because it was easier to read when it was wider.
My original idea was like kind of using all the different weights and, using exclamation points and whatnot. And I saw how light it was and I was like, no, this ain't it for me. So, yeah.
Yeah, it was fun to mess with that one though. Do you have any we forgot to pick a font of the week. What do you recommend?
Oh goodness. I'm like kind of out of touch. I'm like embarrassed. I'm out of touch with typography. So my default answer is Futura because it's a hardworking font,
one yet.
timeless.
Perfect.
Red Bull.
The world, at one point the world might have been all Futura. Maybe it would have been a little different, but we went to Helvetica and it kind of, understandably steered a different way. That was very effective. I just truly am like out of touch.
No, Futura is perfect. We haven't used that one yet.
Hardworking font. There's 100 variations of it. It's,
Yeah.
Very 90s. So, or at least it was for me.
It pairs well with a lot of different things too. So, yeah.
And in general, I just want to commend you both on like this approach, right? Of just having a context to design something every week. That's that idea of a lifestyle, right? You can, if you look back at all these things that you've done, You also could have chose to not do them.
Yeah.
But now you've got this foundation of interesting work, and like I love it. I mean, you honestly have inspired me to like try to just play with some things, just to like pick a font. And one of the previous ones you did got me into variable fonts, which I should have known a long time ago, but I hadn't. And so it's inspiring people on a lot of levels.
Yeah, I think it's inspired us a lot too, especially since it's been so hard for us in this job market. Keeps us thinking, keeps us going. At one point over the last 2 years, I don't think I'd be doing anything design-wise if it wasn't for the podcast. So it's really nice that we created this and have the opportunity to do it.
Yeah. And I truly just like to mess around with the design. So it's nice, like, I can kind of just throw out an idea, mainly on posters, and, kind of mess around, and then also mess with new styles. So
yeah, good experimentation and practice. And
yeah.
Yeah. I think we enjoy it. And I'm glad that we're finally able to do, an episode with a guest with you. And thank you for coming on today.
Yeah. Hopefully, you can feel free to just cut this one out and move on to a better guest. But it's been fun to talk.
Best one. I really enjoyed today's episode, and I hope everyone else enjoys it as well, because it's been nice getting to chat with you, spend time with you.
Please direct all complaints directly to me. Do not take it out on the lovely Sad Design podcast host, because.
But yeah. Do you have anything else for today, Ty?
I don't think so.
No.
Not really.
But thank you so much, Ryan, for coming on.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Yeah,
thank you for having me.
Appreciate you and your constant kindness and support. So
you all make it easy.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for tuning in to 1-800 Sad Design. Until next time, keep designing, stay inspired, and dial into design. Bye.
Bye.